The year was 1888, a time of shifting empires, brewing conflicts, and unsung battles that never made it to the history books. Deep in the rugged terrain of East Africa, where colonial forces clashed in a struggle for power, a battalion of weary soldiers found themselves on the brink of survival. Among them was Captain William Hargrove, a seasoned officer of the British Army, tasked with securing a vital outpost against an overwhelming enemy force. Their adversaries were not mere rebels but warriors, fierce and unyielding, defending their land with unbreakable resolve. As the sun dipped behind the mountains, casting eerie shadows over the battlefield, the soldiers prepared for a night of blood and fire. Chapter 1. The March into the Unknown. The British column moved cautiously through the thick jungle. The air was thick with the scent of damp earth, and every snapping twig sent a ripple of tension through the ranks. The Zulu warriors, allies to the opposing forces, were known for their stealth and lightning-fast ambushes. Captain Hargrove glanced at his lieutenant, James Whitmore, a young officer with fire in his eyes, but uncertainty in his heart. "Stay close to the formation," Hargrove muttered. "They strike like ghosts." The soldiers carried rifles, bayonets affixed, though in close combat, they would be outmatched. Their mission was simple: secure Fort Kambala, an outpost crucial to maintaining control over the region. But something in the air told Hargrove this mission would be anything but simple. Chapter 2. The First Attack. Night fell like a curtain, cloaking the jungle in darkness. The soldiers set up camp near a dried riverbed, posting sentries at the perimeter. The men were exhausted, sweat glistening on their brows despite the cold night air. Then came the first sound, a whisper carried by the wind. Before anyone could react, the jungle exploded with war cries. Arrows and spears rained down upon the camp as Zulu warriors and native fighters emerged from the shadows. "Form up! Form up!" Hargrove bellowed, grabbing his revolver. Bullets cracked through the air, flashes of fire illuminating the chaos. Men screamed as they were dragged into the darkness, their throats slit before they could fire a shot. Whitmore stumbled, his rifle slipping from his grasp. A warrior lunged at him, spear raised, only for Hargrove to fire a shot straight into his chest. "Get up, Lieutenant!" Hargrove roared. The skirmish lasted mere minutes, but the damage was done. 8 men were dead, another 5 wounded. The enemy had vanished, melting into the jungle like ghosts. Hargrove knew this was only the beginning. Chapter 3. The Siege of Fort Kambala. By sunrise, the battered column reached Fort Kambala, a dilapidated structure manned by a handful of desperate soldiers. Their supplies were low, their ammunition scarce. The fort's commander, Colonel Edwin Graves, was a frail man who had seen too much war. "You should have turned back, Captain," Graves said, his eyes hollow. "This place is doomed." Hargrove ignored him. He had no intention of surrendering. The first attack came at dusk. Hundreds of warriors stormed the walls, their war drums pounding like thunder. The soldiers fired volley after volley, but for every enemy they killed, 2 more took their place. Blood stained the walls. Whitmore was struck by an arrow in the shoulder but continued fighting, his uniform soaked in sweat and blood. The enemy retreated, but Hargrove knew they would return. That night, he gathered his remaining men. "We have 2 choices: hold this fort and die, or break through their lines and fight our way back to friendly territory." There was silence. Then Whitmore, now hardened by battle, stood tall. "We fight our way out," he said. "Better to die fighting than waiting for death to find us." The men nodded. The plan was set. Chapter 4. The Final Battle. Before dawn, the soldiers launched their desperate escape. The gates of Fort Kambala burst open, and the British troops charged into the enemy camp. Gunfire erupted. Swords clashed. The night was alive with war. Hargrove fought like a man possessed, his revolver emptying round after round. Whitmore was at his side, his bayonet slashing through the enemy ranks. The warriors fought ferociously, but the British were relentless. With every step, they carved a bloody path through the battlefield. But not without cost. One by one, Hargrove's men fell. A spear pierced his side, but he tore it out, and kept moving. Whitmore was shot in the leg, but he refused to stop. Then, through the chaos, Hargrove saw Graves fall, his chest split open by an enemy blade. They had lost too many. But the dawn was rising. As the sun's golden light bathed the battlefield, the last of the warriors withdrew. The survivors, just 12 out of 60, had made it through. They had won. But at what cost? Epilogue. The price of honor. Months later, back in England, Hargrove and Whitmore stood before their superiors. Their bravery was acknowledged, medals pinned to their chests. But the memories of Fort Kambala, of the men they had lost, never left them. Was it worth it? Whitmore asked one evening, staring at the sunset. Hargrove didn't answer, because deep down he wasn't sure.